President Trump posted just a little while ago on social media, quote, "Be cool. Everything is going to work out well. The USA will be bigger and better than ever before." But it's sparking new fears from some business owners about what's to come.
We actually have a hold on wine shipments coming in, so that's affecting us. It's definitely going to impact the customer. It's a sales tax, basically. It's a 20% sales tax on top of what they're already paying. For the types of wines that I sell, which aren't super expensive, they're everyday, unique, small production wines. That's pretty huge.
Joining us now, NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans, NBC News senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell, NBC News correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer, live from Beijing, and Sabrina Rodriguez, national political reporter at The Washington Post. So, Christine, what's going on Wall Street right now?
It's just kind of up and down, a little bit crazy, trying to figure out how to process this latest round of tariffs and then the retaliation, that news from the European Union coming in here this morning. And when you look at the stock market, I think it's really important to look at the last 4 or 5 days. The 4 days coming in today, you saw the S&P 500 down 12%. That is remarkable. That is a remarkable 4-day sell-off. So that just shows you just the dread in among investors about what's going on here. Also watching the bond market, Jose, I think this is really important here. Usually when you have a stock market in turmoil, you see people rush into the safe haven of the bond market. You're not seeing that. You're seeing selling in the bond market, and the yield on the 10-year note went all the way up to 4.5%. So if you know anybody who works in Wall Street or banking or in finance, you probably heard them talking this morning about, hey, what's going on? That's not normal. So a little bit of consternation about what's happening overall on Wall Street when you look at what's happening in the bond market.
And so why are bonds important, and what is the difference this time around?
Well, bonds are like the glue of the financial system. We talk a lot about the stock market, but the bond market is way bigger. And this is how the United States finances, you know, the day-to-day operations, right? So the bond market is super important here. And you're going to have, I don't want to get too wonky, you're going to have an auction of new bonds later today. We're going to watch that closely to see if there's appetite for that. But for some reason, there was really big selling of U.S. government bonds earlier today, and that bears watching.
And so, Christine, we're just listening to the gentleman that sells wines that says it could be a 20% essentially VAT on what he is selling as far as wines. How soon could consumers see price increases across the board?
You know, I'm hearing weeks, and when I look at that 104% tariff slapped on last night, when you look at the customs language that was, you know, basically transmitted to all of the ports, stuff that's on the water right now and lands tonight, tomorrow, that will still just have the old big tariffs. It won't have the last round of tariffs. So it won't be exactly 104% until maybe the end of May. So there is a little bit of wiggle room here for people who have ordered something that's on the water and it's going to get to the warehouses, you know, in the next couple of weeks. That stuff won't be taxed at the full 104%. But that said, there have been a lot of tariffs already against Chinese goods that are already in effect. So, I mean, dramatic price increases is what a lot of business owners tell me they're going to have to start incorporating in the weeks ahead.
So, Janice, what's the view from there, from China?
Well, officials here announced more countermeasures, 84% on U.S. imports, no longer the 34% that they announced last week to match the latest round of tariffs out of the U.S. They're also adding more than a dozen companies, a lot of them dealing in drone technology, to an unreliable entities list, which is going to make it harder for them to do business here. And there's talk of even more to come, like a ban on Hollywood films, possibly cutting off talks on fentanyl cooperation. So this is a trade war, and it is intensifying, and it's heightening fears about supply chains, about inflation, about recession, as well as about implications for U.S.-China relations, Jose, where trade has always been the backbone.
Yeah, and Kelly, what is the White House's view? Are there any responses to this that Janice is talking about?
Well, certainly we are looking toward the Treasury Secretary. In any administration, that person is one of the trusted voices on all things relating to the economy. And Scott Bessent has certainly been out front in a lot of this, trying to explain and interpret the president's policies, trying to ease minds and so forth. And he's been talking about this as well. And Bessent was speaking today about some of the impact and trying to keep nerves that might be frayed a bit more calm.
If we think about President Trump's agenda, tariffs came first. Now we're going to get tax done. We are pushing for deregulation, and the deregulation, unfortunately, takes longer to kick in. But I tell you, when it does, it's going to be powerful.
So the Treasury Secretary talking about sort of the overall picture of what the administration is trying to accomplish, and again urging patience, and some have boiled it down to trust in Trump. The president has been, in his social media posts and some of the things that he's said on camera in a big speech last night to Republicans in the House, is basically that he knows what he is doing, and urging people, as you read it, Jose, be cool. So that implicitly suggests that he recognizes that there is a lot of consternation, worry, pushback, and anxiety. He says he maintains flexibility about tariffs, but we have had a number of different rationales provided for why he wants to do tariffs, and it could be a multi-pronged reason. Everything from bringing in money into the Treasury coffers for the United States, trying to deal with the fentanyl crisis, trying to rebalance trade relationships, and trying to, of course, bring more manufacturing into the United States, something that is usually a very long-term play.
Yeah, Sabrina, how is this playing out on Main Street across the country?
I think, Jose, the reality is a lot of folks are now, being hit with the reality of what Donald Trump promised on the campaign trail. And it sort of shows, it's fascinating to see, talking to folks last year on the campaign trail, he did talk often in his campaign rallies and speeches about how he was going to impose these sweeping tariffs. One, a lot of people don't necessarily know exactly what a tariff is, exactly how a tariff is going to impact their everyday life. And a lot of folks just trusted him. He talked about how he was going to be great for the economy. He talked about the deregulation, the tax cuts, all the things he wanted to do to help business owners. And a lot of people believed him and sort of opted to think, well, I've heard that the tariffs might be bad, but big picture, it'll be fine. He wouldn't do anything that would hurt the U.S. economy. And for business leaders who are very plugged in on all of this, a lot of folks thought he would be reined in the same way he was in his first term. In his first term, he did impose a lot of tariffs, but they were targeted. They were, on specific things, steel and aluminum, some specific ones on China. It was a very, a much more organized process. Here, there is a lot more chaos. Here, there's a lot more uncertainty that's been infused in the markets. And a lot of folks are just trying to question, what's going to happen here? He's saying it's short term, but is it really?
Yeah, and Janice, meanwhile, the White House insists the U.S. can hold all kinds of cards in this trade war vis-a-vis China. What's the situation with the Chinese economy?
It's no secret China's economy is slowing down, and so a trade war with the United States of America is not going to do much to build confidence. There are reports that China's leadership is going to convene high-level meetings as early as tomorrow to try to come up with support measures they can introduce. They've already rolled out measures to steady the stock markets here that included share buybacks by state-owned enterprises. But in a lot of ways, Jose, it's a waiting game because neither side is looking to budge. President Trump has said that China wants to make a deal badly, but there's no indication here that Beijing is willing to talk, even as dozens of other countries are looking to the White House, in some cases lining up at the White House in order to make a deal for tariff relief.
Christine, how fragile is the Chinese economy?
It is slowing, and it is heavily reliant on the United States. And it is the factory floor to the world. I mean, after it entered the World Trade Organization in 2001, it very rapidly became the factory floor to the world and to the United States. And that's so interesting because that's that period of time that Donald Trump, the president, talks about so much with disdain, that the United States just handed over its manufacturing capacity to China. So he is quite serious about moving that production, some of that production, as much as he can, back to the United States. And that is really, for the economy in China, a very, very big threat.
Kelly, the J.P. Morgan CEO, J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon talked about what the tariffs could mean for our economy. Here's part of what he had to say.
Do you personally expect a recession?
I am going to defer to my economists at this point, but I think probably that's a likely outcome.
How is this landing, or is this landing at all with anyone in the White House?
Well, certainly they are paying attention. Jamie Dimon has been one of the key figures from the banking sector and corporate America who has had the ability to talk to the president from time to time and is certainly a very big voice on this. And when he drops the recession phrase or word and his assessment, that will certainly get attention. The White House believes that the overall policies will be a hedge against that. But these are forces they are unleashing that they cannot entirely control. And at the same time, they are trying to reduce the size of the federal workforce. You have tens of thousands who are losing their jobs, in addition to whatever will happen in the private sector when it comes to employment. That's often a big feature of recession, is that the job market becomes quite different than what we have seen for many years now, which is near very low, almost full employment, very low unemployment. And so the words of these major players who have a lot of insight do carry weight with the president. How quickly he might respond, or will he adjust and respond? We've seen him do it before. Will he do it this time? That remains a big question.